Glenda Roberts, knee right, completed her diploma of primary teaching at Avondale in 1968. She set a course for a life of service and she has stayed the path. Her care and focus for improving the standing of others has transformed countless lives. Glenda Roberts is the 2022 Alumna of the Year. Glenda, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I know I asked this question of Peter, but I'm going to ask you too. Tell me where you're living and what it is that keeps you busy these days.
Well, we live at Alton Villas at Coorambong. We're retired and we enjoy it very much. We seem to be very busy for people who aren't working anymore, so to speak. We volunteer each week on a Sunday and a Tuesday morning at the ADRA op shop at Morisset. We're in charge of the books. And the interesting thing is, over the years, we've had bits and pieces to do with school libraries. So we visit with friends and family. And I'm available to help our daughter Lynette at the college when she has students with problems with essay writing. And we'll very discreetly find a quiet spot in the library and I'll help when I'm asked. I enjoy that too. And then there's other things like reading and gardening, and I'm putting housework at the end.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, you completed your high schooling in Kyogle. Have I pronounced that right?
That's right, yes.
Tell me, what might have been some of the issues for you as you contemplated your next steps to continuing your education after high school?
Well, I was a Leaving Certificate girl, which was only 5 years of high school. So I finished school at 16 and a half. And my mum thought that was too young to go to Avondale. And there was also a few problems with finance because mum and dad were not well at that time. My dad had a medical problem, which meant he couldn't work because he was a carpenter and he needed that physical strength to do it. So I stayed home for 2 years and helped with the housework, helped with the shopping, and I continued my piano studies. And I'd been learning music for many years with the nuns at the local convent. And I just did that for 2 years, part-time, and finished with gaining my A+A before I went to Avondale. And it's been one of the most useful and special diplomas that I've ever had. I've used my music in every place we've been.
Your music's very important to you, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is. It is.
You spent some time teaching in Betty Calma directly after graduating, and I understand it was probably a little bit unusual for a single female to be sent to the islands. Was this an issue for you and your family at all?
I'll just start with this. It's not actually as unusual as you think, in that I have a friend who was a single missionary back in the 50s. So it actually did happen. And there had been some in Cambodia before we went. But no, it wasn't an issue. I had a fellow classmate who came with me. And really, there was a wonderful family atmosphere on the little campus. I felt very well cared for there. My mum didn't mind. My dad didn't say very much, but my mum just said, go for it. What an adventure.
Oh, good on her.
So family wasn't against it.
So can you tell me how you met Peter?
He was a student who came to teach in my classroom as a practice teacher. And I remember him very well. At least I knew he could teach. When he asked me out, I knew a little bit about him and a little bit about him as a person, even as from the perspective of supervisor. But yes, in my classroom at Avondale Primary School there, the old building on the corner there where the nurses, my classroom was in one of those rooms along the front there.
Glenda, service is a big thing to you personally, and during your time at Tweed Valley Adventist College in Murwillumbah, you provided students with an opportunity to serve others through flight builds to the Solomon Islands. What is it that you actually wanted them to be able to gain from that experience?
Well, we wanted to get them involved in service. We wanted them to experience life in another culture. And we also wanted them to learn to work together as a team. Not only would it expose them to a new experience, but it might help them in their decisions about their future life. And of those young men who came from year 10 at the time, some in year 11, at least 5 of them have become builders. That's their life work. And there they were out on a mission station helping another builder who was giving them a lot of supervision to build things there. And quite a few of the students who came on the fly-in bills later came down to Avondale and studied at Avondale, did teaching, nursing, business. It was great to see that. The second time we went out, we built a school clinic, a 2-room clinic, which is still being used. And so the interesting thing for me is all those times that Peter and I went out for teacher training, we'd go down and see where the clinic was. We'd watch the students playing basketball on the basketball court that our students also built. And that's wonderful. It's like coming full circle.
Service has, not only been an important and critical part of your life, but you've wanted to impart that to others. Can you remember it all, or can you identify where that first sort of niggle, that first connection and interest in serving first started?
My mother was a person who gave away things right down to almost her last dollar just to help someone else. And at my daughter's wedding, in her speech, she talked about me as someone who'd give away my last piece of cheese to a starving mouse. I was quite amazed by that comment. So there was a family example. But I also read biographies of people who had served overseas, particularly when we went across to Lismore camp meeting each year, and we'd go and buy our books in the ABC bookshop. I was always interested in stories about missionaries and things like that. I'd enjoyed listening to mission reports at camp time. And some of the young people at Kyogle Church, granted it was a very small church, some of them had been to Avondale and they would talk about Avondale. And one girl, probably 5 or 6 years older than myself, actually was a missionary at Betty Calmer and came and told stories about the place. And so that was how I sort of learnt a little bit about it and had a desire that maybe one day I'd like to do that.
Let's talk about the teacher training program that you and Peter have set up in the Solomon Islands and Vanuatu. How did you become involved in that?
Well, it was the principal at Fulton College, Tony Hay at the time, knew that we'd taken leave from teaching and we were considering retirement. And so he spoke to Peter because there was a need there to train untrained teachers. There were hundreds of them. So he spoke to Peter first, and I guess then it filtered down to me. Are you interested? Would you like to be involved in this sort of thing? And that's how I got involved in it, through Peter, through Tony Hay originally, and some other officials who were working on it. I was very interested, very happy to do that.
You were involved in the lecturing part of that, and Peter was saying that there's been over 300 teachers that have come through that program. Can you remember the very first group that you saw come through the program and graduate? And can you remember how you felt?
A great feeling of satisfaction at what had been achieved, and so happy for the students. Quite emotional, a few tears there. And it was because it seemed as if all our hard work had come to fruition.
If you had your time again, is there anything that you'd do differently?
I've got written here, probably nothing. I'm not a person who looks back, and I don't look back at the road not taken. I'm very happy with the direction that my life has gone. Once Peter and I had given a little talk in church one morning, and a fairly new lady to our church, she'd just graduated as a lawyer, came up to us and said, "I envy you both." And we went, "Oh dear, I don't like to cause envy with somebody else." And she said, "It's just that you've led such an interesting life." And that's what I'd like to say. I've led a very interesting life.
And you've led a very full life. So can you give me one or two highlights?
Well, I don't know whether they all have to do with teaching, but I've written down here, working at mission schools was great. Becoming a wife, mother and grandma was a highlight for my life. Our daughter married a young man from America who came out to be a student missionary at Charlestown. And so we've had many overseas trips to America to meet and spend time with his family, especially Christmas in the snow and the cold. Another one would be the 7 graduations that we've attended. And another highlight was being a teacher of students who were studying for the HSC. It was so wonderful to stand aside and just look at their excitement when they received incredible results, and a great feeling of satisfaction that I'd had something to do with that.
Yeah, it's so lovely to see your face light up when you talk about others and their growth and their success and their achievement. It's really lovely to see that come out on your face.
Thank you.
Glenda, you made a commitment decades ago to serve God through serving others, and you've allowed your talents to change and empower communities. So I want to say thank you for your determination, for your dedication and your commitment, and for imparting all that you can to the generations that are following. Glenda, you are the 2022 Alumna of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, there's more to Glenda's story, so I encourage you to head to the Avondale Alumni Facebook page or to our website. And if you'd like to send her a message, you can do so on this post or email alumni@avondale.edu.au.